So the number one thing you can do to reduce anxiety and fear around where your next deals are coming from, and this will probably surprise you what the answer is. And the best part of it all is it doesn't cost you anything. Maybe a little bit of your time, but it doesn't actually cost you anything to do.
Yeah, it's not something that costs money. It's a business activity. So I wanted to start off by going into a situation that I had early in my team building of my career. I remember we had a down month and a miscalculation in our books, and I brought my right-hand gal in. Her name was Kathy, and I closed the door behind me, and I said, "Kathy, it's all over. Like, we just gotta, we're not gonna make it." And she's like, "I know. I've always thought this was gonna happen." And I'm like, "What?" Like, I never thought that until now. And it was because we weren't keeping track properly of the metrics within the business, not just the books. And when you do that, when you have that, as you grow your business, the bigger you grow it, the scarier it gets. When it can be, I mean, if it's not bigger than you, you're not thinking big enough. And, when it gets to that level where it's like, oh my God, I got all this, responsibility and overhead and people relying on me and vendors and bills I got to pay. You got to be able to think clearly, and you must have a plan. And you must have, the right metrics to watch in order to be able to sleep at night and avoid freaking out your team or your right-hand person by telling them, it's all over. We're going to crash, which ultimately, I don't remember what the resolve was. It was like we miscalculated something that we miscalculated, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. And the funny thing was, like, I thought I was just going to have to put some money in the account. That's why I was freaking out so much, because me, I don't like doing that.
I don't want to put it back.
No. I hate putting it back. It's already mine. It's already in the other pile. It's in that pile. It's not for them.
No,
right?
No takey backies.
Yeah, and so I think this, as far as this topic is concerned, and as we dive into this, a lot of times, where do you start? And I'll never forget something that kind of changed my paradigm on the matter was a story that I heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but it was about Michael Dell and how he built Dell computers in his dorm room. And what he did was he scaled out the entire business as it was big, and then went all the way down to where he was at now, right? Like what do you call those deals that we always are supposed to make, we never do, as far as hierarchy and structure of the business? What's it called? You know what I'm talking about? Org chart. And so for me, like, I never forgot that with Michael Dell. And so I think that no matter where you're at now, you will find, to get to the next level, you must improve upon this particular topic and the techniques that we're going to go into in order to get you to the next level. If you can't get to the next level, you're not going to be able to. You have to master this in order to be able to get to the next level. And so, start with where you're at, and build up from there, but also have a bigger vision for what you want it to be in the future. So let's dive into this a little bit, Jake.
Yeah. And Mandy just commented vision board ? Which is a good guess. Right?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. I mean, as well, I still have vision boards. I'm a little lazy about it nowadays. I just write it down and pin it to where I put the crap out of my pockets every night and get it every morning. I don't necessarily have the visual part, but I got the words,
right.
The goals that I want to achieve.
And I think where that kind of leads to, it's actually probably the starting point, because as you are looking at, and I've had the luxury of working with Jeff Abrams, who is a genius numbers spreadsheet guy, right?
Oh yeah, we meet with him every week. He's part of the process.
It's all part of the process, and it's like, what is the dashboard and the most important numbers I can look at to know exactly what's going on in the business across from A to Z, what's going on in the business, without getting completely overwhelmed with too many numbers, right? Or not enough information, but I can make intelligent decisions on what we need to focus on, because I can see what the bottleneck is in the process.
Hence what we're talking about specifically, which is business intelligence. And, as you progress, even if you're just single agent, you need to have some business intelligence and some numbers that you're tracking in order to understand where your strategy is going to take you and be able to measure and tweak and test along the way to determine whether or not you're getting closer or farther away from the goal. My point is, the bigger the business, as you grow your business, the more in-depth your business intelligence needs to be. You know, my brother and sister-in-law at Culver's, if their labor efficiency ratio drops below a certain percentage throughout the day, they send people home. They have to in order to have a profitable day. Well, what's labor efficiency ratio, right? Like, they didn't teach me that in school. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yep.
seriously. And so most of us as real estate agents, right, we don't have MBAs, and, you know, we don't know these type of things. And a lot of times we got to pay, you know, people to regurgitate them for us a lot more than probably is necessary. J. Abraham. I'm just joking. But in all seriousness, let's just dive into some of these things, like, you know, from the beginning, right? If you're an agent and you don't have any business intelligence, in other words, you're not tracking specific things in your business, you know, where do you start? And what led me down this path was literally our meetings with Jeff, and how sophisticated our business intelligence has become over the years. Like, we couldn't run this business without, you know, really having a strong handle on these numbers.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, you just wouldn't want to deal with me if we didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, we're spending what, where, why? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, yeah. And the natural tendency that I have is to be conservative when I don't know, right? If I don't know, then I'm not spending. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then what happens? You don't have growth, and you can't get to the next level, and you don't understand why you're not getting to the next level. It's just like this glass ceiling, and you go through the motions, and you can do all the wishful thinking you want. You know what I mean? And it's just not going to happen without the action and the activity. And in order to have the action and activity, I'm talking to people who are like me out there. You're going to have to know the numbers so that you feel comfortable with the outflow of cash. Quite honestly, with the ability to invest, whether it's in training and education, or marketing, or personnel, multiplying yourself through others. Like, in order to do this, you have to be able to track, and you have to be able to know. And I think it really starts with being able to have a plan to understand consistently where your transactions are going to come from. Because if you don't know where the income is going to come in, it's very, very difficult. Especially if you're looking at your bank account and it's thin, right? To feel comfortable with an outflow continuing without that changing.
Yeah. Like, so I talked to an agent yesterday that I talked to on Friday as well. She does probably about 40 a year or so, somewhere 30 to 40 a year, in Montana too. So she's doing pretty well. And she was like, it's just now the end of the year. So this is always the time where I go back and look, because like I got Zillow coming in, and it's historically done pretty well for me, but I don't know how it did for me this year. I don't know what came from Sphere. I don't know what came from referral, right? So she has no way to look like on an ongoing basis. She just has this process where she's at least looking at the end of the year to make sure that she's making decisions going into how she's going to split up her budget or whatever it may be. But she was like, well, I don't want to do newspaper stuff because that really doesn't work anymore. And I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. And I don't want to do this because those are things that I've already peeled off of my budget. So it was like looking at it, and it was looking back on it. But as you're going, like for me personally, that'd be like us running something for an entire year and then being like, did it work or not? You know what I mean? Like, and I think that probably comes from what we're trying to accomplish being really clear, right? Like, we have a very specific goal in mind. So like, we have a specific goal that we're trying to hit by a specific date.
Yeah.
And we know if we are on pace or off pace. Yeah. So all of
which we've been off pace, you know what I mean? Right. I'll just be vulnerable. We've been off pace on our internal goals. And the cool thing about this for me is like, all of the things that we do, it's probably because I don't know any better. You know what I mean? Like, they're all structured in the same way you would structure a real estate business, including the marketing, including the cash conversion cycle, including the customer acquisition cost, including the cost per lead, the cost per appointment, right? The conversion rate of those appointments, the show rate of those appointments. Like, everything we do is the same stuff that agents need to be doing. And you know, the deeper we dive into it, the more value we get to bring to you guys, which is awesome. I mean, there's not many products out there that I know of. I mean, even coaching, right? Like, their customer acquisition style is a little bit different, generally speaking, than a real estate agent's. And then other lead gen platforms and products, like we dove into their marketing yesterday. Totally different type of a scenario than, what we implement to generate, business for ourselves, which is also what we prescribe for our customers to generate business. But I want to give some actionable steps. I want this to be more tactical, as you would say, Jake. What's the first step? I think the first step, if you don't know where to begin, is to silo and segment up your bank accounts. And I've said this before, but I'll say it a bunch of times, and determine what percentage of your income goes to you and what percentage of your income goes to your business. And those need to be treated as two separate people, right?
Yes.
And oftentimes that means, in order to be able to do that, either increasing production to get more income or decreasing your overhead, right? Like whatever you have to do. Keeping the overhead low is the secret to life, I think the dude said in The Gambler, John Goodman, or whatever that movie was. It is helpful to be able to implement this and segment your income, because a lot of times they just get a commission and they think it's all theirs, and it's not. Like, a good chunk of that's Uncle Sam's, right? And then a portion of it needs to go back into your business. I mean, imagine if a burger joint, like I mentioned earlier, Culver's, just took all the cash every day and then didn't save money for inventory or employees. Like, it would be as the book says, having a barbecue, right? Like, instead of milking the cow. I mean, you could do it for a few days, but as soon as you run out of that beef or hamburger patties, or the employees don't get their checks, like the show is over. So I think that's step one. Step one is segmenting, and at a minimum, I think it should be 50-50, depending on your income level. Like, half goes to you, half goes back into the business, half goes to you, half goes back into the business. That would be a really good place to start. I remember the first time I had ever untethered my own personal account with my business account in the real estate business, and it felt really good. You know what I mean? Because, like, I didn't have to worry about both in the same way that I used to. Now I just had to worry about, what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this one's okay. This one's having some trouble, so I need to focus on this one, right? That might be my personal one or my business one, but either way, I know what to do, right? And it's still the same way I run things, Pat always gives me a hard time because I'm so conservative, and I like to silo up, reserves for this business, but also the other businesses that I have. And he's like, Mike, that's not normal. No, most people don't do that. I'm like, well, that's the only way I can sleep at night, because I know, like, I don't have to personally contract, right, to be able to fund this business in case stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so,
but it's running the business like a true business, and not.
That's how it begins.
That mindset shift has to happen.
And I don't care if you're a buyer's agent, if you're on a team. I mean, like, you need to be putting these practices into place regardless, because at the end of the day, there's a saying my dad always gave me: who looks out for number one, right? You. Who's number one? You, right? Only you look out for number one. So you got to do this for yourself so that you can make proper decisions, think clearly, and let's keep progressing. So I think the next step would be understanding where your business comes from and what it takes to acquire that business, so that you can feel comfortable knowing that you're going to have a consistency in income. And even if it's an inconsistent consistency, you're going to find patterns there, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I think with most people in real estate, the most consistent thing that is happening, if you're not consistently generating leads from the same source, or you have been for a little while, is, like, most people start with their sphere and referral. And I usually, whenever I'm unpacking a conversation with somebody on okay, tell me what your goal is, and then let's figure out a plan on how we're going to get there, I'm like, okay, so with your eyes closed, you might be closing 10 to 15 deals a year from your sphere and referral. So we can count on at least 10 or maybe 12. We can count on one a month, on average. And like clockwork will shape out to be, or 6, one every other month, right? But if the goal is 50, then now we know we need to come up with another 44. You know what I mean?
What? 44. Oh yeah.
If it was
every 2 months. I got you. Yeah.
So one every 2 months, right? But it's understanding each pillar and siloing each pillar and source of where your deals come from, right? So
let's unpack that a little more too.
Yeah.
Like what other sources? So we talk about digital marketing and online lead gen all the time, but the metrics of tracking are the same regardless, right? You're going to have, like, the top of the funnel, whether that's calling expireds and how many expireds you need to call in order to get you an appointment. The appointment would be more the middle of the funnel. When you meet with them would be the bottom of the funnel, right? I don't care if it's expireds, FSBOs, going, to some type of trade show, right? Like you just need to have these metrics, know that you can count on X, because just guessing is horrible. Guessing causes all the anxiety. And it also, what happens when you run your business in that manner and you don't have those things siloed and separated, and you don't have an understanding of where your business is going to come from, you tend to do things that suck, right? You end up in a position where you're in a lot of high rejection scenarios, because you're leaking the information of how needy you are. It's a small percentage of the amount of information that comes out of our mouth. The rest is all body and everything else, right? And tonality and what have you. I forget what it is. It's like 80% is nonverbal or something to that effect. But in order to be confident, in order to be clear, it's having this understanding of where your business is going to come from. And it for me, I can't imagine not turning advertising dollars into commissions, because the things that are required in order to not be in that position are those high rejection scenarios, which suck, and they're also very disheartening when you have somebody you've showed 1 million houses to go buy from someone else when you call them, or you missed the listing when you were, in a multiple interview scenario and situation, and you were counting on that,
Yep.
But if every no leads to a yes type of a scenario, which I hate that. You know what I mean? Like embracing rejection, embracing the suck. There's better ways. Market Maker is one of them. Shameless plug. But, being clear on where your business is going to come from and what it takes to get there is paramount to having a business instead of, a job.
Right.
Not even a job, like a hopeful hobby,
Right. So like for us, we have two main pillars that we track separately, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like internal kind of sphere and referral type thing, right? Where we have our list of people that have been with us for a minute, right? And then we have our online lead generation, which we can break down more, right? But we look at it overall, just two pillars, right? So like when I'm setting the goal for how many clients we want to have based off of our this is where it gets somewhat complex, and I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, right? So there's an overall goal that you're trying to get to in some time frame. Real estate, really good to look at it from an annual point of view, right? So 2021, I want to do 30 million in production. I talked to somebody the other day, it was like, he was super clear, 15 million is the goal this year. The next year it's going to be 30 million, right? Trying to scale his team, all this fun stuff.
Double is hard. Everybody wants to double. Yeah.
Everybody wants to double, and double is not, 10 to 20, a lot easier to do that versus 150 to 300. But it can be done, right? So, but when you silo it and you're looking at each one, I just wrote it down, like overall, just as simple as possible, like key metrics, how many leads come in, how many of those people do you have conversations with, do you contact, right? Of those, how many do you have appointments with? And then how many become closings, right? There's a couple extra steps that you can layer in there. But from a simplistic point of view, if you could just track those numbers per source each month, the amazing part is that if you ever are off or way ahead or you hit your numbers, you can go back and look at what those numbers were and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. Like anytime we're off, I go back and I'm recapping the month and I already know because I saw what we were pacing off, right?
Yeah.
I know what the problem was, right? Either we changed something in the pitch and so our conversations changed, right? So the appointment to close ratio was off this month, but when I go back and I've listened to the calls and I'm like, ooh, we tweaked something here and something changed in what we were offering or how we were offering it, and we just got to go back to it and we're going to fix this thing. We're going to get right back on track.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's so easy to diagnose and fix and not let a whole year go by and be like, oh, that's why I didn't hit the goal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
well, and I think that's kind of step 2 also is like write down the goal. What's the goal? And I wouldn't do it necessarily from a transaction standpoint or I would do it from a gross commission standpoint, like in your pocket, right? And make it realistic. I think the biggest problem that people have with setting goals is they set these wild, crazy goals, and they know in their heart like they're not going to be able to hit it, but they're like, I don't want to think small, and I think there is a balance between the two. But then what they've done is they've just given themselves subconscious permission to not move mountains to achieve that goal. And I'm guilty. I've been guilty of that. I think everybody's been guilty of that. And so what we try to do is, incremental increases, as far as, the annual goal is concerned. And I think importantly too, like if the goal is, let's say, first time 100 grand, like it was for me at one point, annually in commissions, like look at half of that going into your pocket, and then look at your bills and make sure that your budget's on track for that personally as well. Like, can my personal budget sustain this, right? Or if it's 250 in GCI, same scenario, because you might have to increase it just based on your personal overhead or desires,
Right.
Yeah.
And what I
But
would
don't make your business suffer is my main point there. Don't
correct.
drop
And-
from there to
And I think too, something that's super helpful. Like I try to break down whenever someone tells me what their goal is, I try to break it down to that's this much per month, because obviously there's some seasonality and whatever. But if you can average that over a certain time frame, like and you actually have tracked your numbers, you now have the formula to be able to do that at any point, right?
right.
So it's like
That's
you
the
don't have to pigeonhole yourself. Like for real estate, it's probably looking at a 3-month time frame, right? Of what the activity was 3 months ago to what your production was. It's got that delayed gratification.
Big time.
on-
Yeah, what you're doing now is a result of 30, 60, 90 days ago.
Exactly.
All day. And sometimes even longer.
Right.
6 months ago, 8 months ago, 12 months ago.
Which
But you want to be good to your future self and have a plan for 30, 60, 90, 6 months, 12 months from now.
which is why in real estate, if you're tracking these numbers and you see 3 months ago, all of your activity numbers are really high. You had a bunch of leads come in, you had a ton of conversations, you had a ton of appointments, right? 3 months ago, and then the next 2 months are light because you were working with all those people. Like, welcome to the real estate roller coaster of the up and down, because the activity that you did not do for the next 2 months is going to hurt you for now the next 2 months. You might have made 20 grand this month, but the next 2 months are going to hurt.
Well, and this is the trap, see, because what happens is you then, if you don't do this right, you'll never get on a track that will allow you to consistently and comfortably invest into yourself and into your business. And what happens is agents will have that good month, and then they'll go buy some stuff, and then 3 months later they'll be like, oh well, I had these 4 deals fall apart and I spent all that money already, and now I'm scrambling and I'm fearful, and I don't have the mental clarity and wherewithal to continue to invest back into my business. And the reason why is because they don't track the numbers. They don't track the outcome. And personally, we believe, right, like the ability to turn advertising dollars into commissions is the highest and best skill, or into any type of return on investment is the highest and best skill you can have in business, period. I was talking to, and I keep bringing up my brother-in-law, I guess he's on my mind, him about digital marketing for Culver's. He sent me this thing and he's like, hey, these guys do this, what do you think? And it was like, it wasn't very sophisticated. It was like, so many, it was digital marketing on Facebook and things of that nature. It was like so many views, right? Like this amount of $1,000 per views of the ad. And I was like, bro, try it, test it. You know what I mean? Like you just,
Right.
You never know until you test something. That's the secret.
You because you're so confident, right, in your ability to still at this point in your life be dropped in the market and turn on marketing and be able to sell real estate, right? Like,
yeah, it's got to have transactions. Let me qualify it. Like, you know what I mean? You drop me into some little town that has 5 deals. You know what I mean? And like the local agent has grown up there their whole life. Like, I'm probably not going to be able to crack into that one.
Right.
There's got to be money there. Somewhere there's money. Yes.
Gadosh.
Transactions.
Lake. You know what I mean?
No. I told Gadosh what I would do, like if I was coming.
You'd sneak up on him, but
I told him what I would do. I was like, "Man, you're missing the boat on this. You need to be doing this, because if somebody came in and did it,
you wouldn't even know it's coming."
Yep.
But if you got dropped in, but it's just because you've developed a skill that no matter what the source is, whatever it may be, the person can be a complete stranger or it can be your best friend. You have a very repeatable process to take it from a conversation to the closing table, right?
Yeah, and that's a skill set. side.
Exactly.
For sure.
But you've developed that, and you've been able to see it over the years, be consistent with what the numbers are. You've been able to train people to do the same thing, right? So you have confidence, and it's that confidence that allows you to be comfortable. Like, could you imagine if you dropped into a market where the average commission was like 15 grand? Like, could it'd be hard to invest $15,000 into marketing, right? And get hundreds and hundreds of leads for $1,500 or $15,000, and not be confident that accidentally you'd be at least be able to get your money back, right?
Yeah, but I don't think about getting my money back.
Well, no. But I'm saying in a comfort level of like of being able to, because I go back to.
So I'm not a gambler, Jake, but I know where you're going. That's a sure bet.
Yeah. So many marketers, very, very smarter than me, marketers always say you should never have a budget. Like, your budget should be unlimited if your ROI is positive on something. The only thing you should ever have is a testing budget, and a good testing budget is what you would make off of one sale, because you got to be confident that you can at least get one sale out of a test, and it might be the right place to continue to dig or not. And with real estate, it's just, like most people don't think like that. It's like, your average sales price is $500,000, so you have a $15,000 commission, but I might be willing to invest $1,000 or $2,000 to see if this is going to work. Like, kind of, it's just a little bit of a paradigm shift of like running your business like a business, right? Ciphering off 2 different accounts to where you have something that you've got in here that's based off of a goal that you're really trying to accomplish, and going back to Mandy's comment about the vision board, like, it is a really good place to start with what you want versus what you don't want. And that's,
it gets the juices flowing, Yeah. And then from there you start to develop the strategy, based on the goal as far as the income level for 2021, for example. Like, and I always talk about, looking at it every day, looking at it every night, just like the book I read taught me, which helps a lot. And then you have to have those metrics. Like, for us, it's real simple. Like, how many leads, right? How many of those leads turn into appointments? How many of those appointments turn into actual shows? So the show ratio. How many of those people that showed turned into, for real estate, a face-to-face? And of those, how many turned into a commission, right? And once you have that watermark, I mean, it's just that simple. You can scale it. That's nailing it. Now you scale it, and you can just turn it up at will. And there are challenges to turning it up. Don't let me oversimplify it for you. I mean, there's always going to be challenges, right? Like, you want to turn it up, you might need to get more people. You might need to get more time. You might need to get more systems in your business so that you can structure your day properly, so that you can have the luxury of turning it up, for example, or hire an assistant so that you don't have to do lower dollar amount of activity tasks. I mean, there's always a new problem at each level, but the thing is, you're never going to get there unless you have business intelligence to help you track and guide you on what it is you're trying to accomplish. So if you're on track or off track, and how far off track or where you're off track, like Jake was saying. Is it the conversation that you're having and the skill set that you need to have there? Is it sales training? Like, maybe you're meeting with these people, but you're not selling them. Maybe you don't have a good presentation for listings, for example. Or if you're working with a buyer, maybe you're not really clear on how to knock them over. You know what I mean? There's a lot of good training out there. And that's when you would take some of that money from your business account and invest it into the training, for example. Or you would start to look to whatever resources that were available. I mean, YouTube, there's so much training. It's crazy. I wish I had YouTube, but at the same time, it's a gift and a curse, because, like, priority confusion, where do you go, where do you start, like, what actually is important to watch. But it's situational, and it's based on where you're at right now and what you need to be learning. So, you know what I mean? I forget the specific term, but it's learning on demand, I think is what Stephen Larson called it. And I love it, because I don't like to just learn for the sake of learning. I like to learn for the sake of implementation. If I can't implement it right then and then determine whether or not it was a benefit, it's not interesting to me. And that's kind of the key. But I think, to begin, Google business intelligence, understand, like, the metrics that you need to be looking at. And if you'd like some help with these things, I'm going to take this out, Jake. I got 3% left. Go to marketmakercall.com. Check out how we help you with all of this, including the lead generation, the business. Where am I going with this? Acquisition side of things, being able to consistently understand where your income should be coming from, what you need to be doing to tweak it, as far as getting every little piece of the pig. I'm going crazy on my little pitch here, Jake. You're like, feeling sorry for me with your facial expressions. I love it. I love it.
This
You
is
know, I watch
very.
it.
This is like listening to one of the pitches where you have said it 8,000 times, but somehow you say something and you're like, wait, what did I just say?
Well, what I'm trying to say is like wherever the bottleneck is, we'll help you with it. Whether it's getting the leads in, getting the appointments to show, what you're saying to the appointments to get them face to face. Where we stop is on the sales training. If you can't sell them when you meet them out there, you need to get some outside sales training, and there's a lot of resources for that.
And
maybe we won't stop there. Maybe we'll keep going down that path too.
Right. But when you're clear on what your destination is, like my car just started leaking coolant, right? I took it in. But
Yep.
You know how I knew what was wrong? Is when I turned on the car, it said coolant low. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you
gotta have the
if it just started smoking, I wouldn't know where to start. You know what I mean? But that's the beauty of having a dashboard that tells you what's going on and where to focus. And because it takes the guesswork out of it, it takes the emotional part out of it, and it's just these are what the numbers are. This is your problem. I don't care if you think that's your problem or not. The numbers say that that's your problem. So
see it as it is, not worse than it is, as Tony Robbins says, right? Yeah, and then go to work fixing it. I mean, it's a fun process. The saying is, who you are now is not who you'll need to be, right? Or who you'll need to become in order to achieve what it is you're trying to achieve. You know, that's how you become that person is through that process. And you just continually learn and acquire those skills. So, take us out, brother. I got 2%.
Yeah, buddy, we cleared it out. So, as we always say here at Market Maker, you are always just one pre-position appointment away.
Every day.